Have you ever wondered why businesses fail? It's not because of strategy, but it's because of people. Why some leaders inspire, whereas some create toxic cultures. Or why stress and burnout are now just part of this job. I'm Prina Shah, and in this channel, we're going deep into the psychology behind business. How human behavior can change the way companies operate, how leaders lead, and how you can thrive in your career or in your business. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, stick around and click the subscribe button. So who am I? My background is that I worked in the Big Four for 6 years prior to quitting. I started as a graduate at KPMG, and I was in the deal advisory department, specializing in transaction services, financial due diligence. So for anyone who doesn't know what that means essentially I was in the M&A sector, so mergers and acquisitions, and when a company was being bought or sold, or a division was being bought or sold, we would go in there and look at the business's financial statements, so their management accounts, and we would try and understand what the true operating profit was, what the net working capital of the business is, and whether they were in a net cash or net debt position. And we'd also look at their cash flow. And using all these numbers, a different team, the valuations team, they would plug these numbers in to help determine how much the company would be valued for, essentially. So I've seen businesses inside out. I've worked on £1 million companies and $1 million companies, and I've seen a lot. We used to analyze different bits of the P&L, for example, so we would understand the revenue line. What was driving revenue? Is it because of price? Is it because of volume? Or profit? Is the profit only going up because actually your revenue has stayed the same, but your costs have lowered? And we'd try and understand all this information, and then this is obviously all essential to understanding how to value the company. But the one thing I kept noticing was it wasn't just about the numbers, it was also about how the business was operated, the people in the business. And that's the one line that stood out a lot, the labor cost line. And also, whilst working in the Big Four, I also started looking at my colleagues, myself, and everything, and trying to understand, how do we keep people motivated? I worked in a very high-pressured, stressed environment, really long hours, and you could see sometimes the toll it took on certain employees, whereas some people were fine, or they just managed and they could cope with the stress. And I found this all really interesting. This led me to leave my corporate job and start Patterns of the Mind, a mental health and well-being consultancy that helps businesses transform by understanding the human element. I strongly believe that self-understanding is the key to success. If we understand our stress triggers, our communication styles, our decision-making patterns, then we can unlock better leadership, better workplaces, and better businesses. So what can you expect from this channel? Real talk on business and human behavior. No fluff. We'll break down why businesses succeed or fail beyond just strategy. Practical insights that you can use, whether you're a leader, an entrepreneur, or an employee. I'll give practical tools and tips that you can take away and use on yourself. Case studies and stories from either the M&A side, things that are on the news, and we'll dig in to see what caused the business to crash. Was it because of poor leadership? Or was it toxic work culture? Was it a mixture of both? What was it? And soon, hopefully, we'll also have guests on this. This isn't just a business channel. It's about how people drive businesses and what you can do to get ahead of the game. If that sounds like something that resonates with you, then hit the subscribe button, because I'll be dropping episodes quite regularly. So the question I get asked regularly is, why did I choose mental health? I changed careers and sectors. We're going from M&A, finance, fully in finance, and now I'm going into businesses to help re-strategize the way that they deal with people. And what is my mission? I just have a strong desire to help people. I want to make a difference in life. I don't know, there was always a part of me when I was working in the corporate world saying, this is not enough, I need to be doing more and bigger, and I can help people on a bigger scale. And that's what I wanted to do. When I reflect back to when I was younger, when I was applying for university, initially I actually wanted to become a doctor. And that my whole aim was just to help people. And I remember one of my chemistry teachers at that point turned around and said, "No offense, Prina, but you're not cut out to be a doctor." She was like, "You want to help people, great, but I don't see like medicine with you." And when she said that, it kind of, okay, she did say it in a more harsh term, but when she did say that, it made me reflect. And then I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to do medicine, and I ended up taking a gap year. And when I was talking to loads of my family who are in the finance world, a lot of them were like, go into finance. It's going to open a lot of doors for you, and then you can figure out eventually what you want to do. And I then obviously entered the finance world, working in the M&A industry, and it was great. Like, I've learned a lot. I used to work on deals in multiple industries. So I've worked on deals across like the healthcare industry, food and beverage, retail, manufacturing, a bit of tech. So I've kind of dabbled in a bit of all. And I've really analysed businesses from the beginning to the end. And by the time I left the Big Four, I was also manager. So I used to also just run the deals with obviously a director or partner just above me, like leading the actual team. But I would be managing the rest of the team who would be working for me. And it just got me like really curious when I was looking at either the clients that we were working with or employees, and just seeing like how, everyone was going through something and you wouldn't really know what. And in a business environment, you're not going to sit down and say, oh my God, like this has happened in my life, this is how I'm feeling, etc. And some people would walk into the office and they would be really angry that day, and it would probably come out on other colleagues and stuff. And you didn't know, like, is it something that happened at work, at home, and then they've like brought something in, or is there something happening in their personal life? And then when I used to also look at the other way around, I always wondered like, oh, they've had a really bad day at work, does this come out at home? And all of these things got me quite curious, and I used to see the effect that working really long hours had on me. For example, like I always used to be tired at home. I used to be cranky with my brother and sister. And it just all got me curious, like, okay, what is this? At the end of the day, we all need to work because we all need money. Money is essential in this planet. Like, it's so expensive, especially right now. We all need to, like, we're all thriving to find the best jobs or be the best entrepreneur, like make money. And now there's a lot of people who are doing side hustles, etc., because it's just not affordable anymore. And that's where I was just like, look, these are the people I actually want to help. Because again, there's quite a few people who are stuck in jobs that they may not necessarily want to be in, but it's just because they need the money and you need to survive. So a lot of people in. But then it's like, why does it have to be a difficult place to work in? Why can't it be simpler? And that's what's always like driven me. It's just like, we spend, I think I've done calculations, but I think it's around 220 days. This includes minus weekends, bank holidays, and annual leave. But 220 days of the year you spend at work. And if you were working like the hours I was, which was like 12 hours plus, I'd spend most of my year at work with my colleagues. You can see how many days you spend in the year. It's a lot, right? And this is something that should be enjoyable. And that's what my mission is. My mission is to go into companies, to help companies improve in terms of organizational culture. And that goes through in a lot of different ways. It's either through communication style, helping people with stress and like preventing burnout, building confidence, resilience, like teaching leaders how to become better leaders. And I think overall, when you have all of these things that are going well in the business, eventually this will turn into higher revenue and better profit for a business. And overall, it will also impact other stakeholders. So I really think mental health and well-being should not just be a tick box exercise. It's something that is actually essential. Because at the end of the day, people make businesses. Yes, I know AI has come in, but AI works to a certain extent. It doesn't have the emotion capacity to make decisions, etc., or any of that yet, I say, because let's face it, eventually, maybe one day it might. But businesses are made up of people. Like right now, I have my business and it's made up of people. Whether you're in manufacturing, you still have people. Food and beverage, you have people. Healthcare, you have people. Professional services, people. There are people who run this business, right? If you have employees, your business is made up of people. And every decision that is made, it's interesting to understand. Was it a decision that was being driven by emotion? Or was it a decision that was made by logic? And when you start understanding these things, you actually see how human behavior impacts a business and whether it can actually lead to a business failing or succeeding really well. What's the one thing people misunderstand the most about businesses? I find this really interesting, and I think honestly my perspective only changed because I was in the M&A industry. Working on deals, it was actually really interesting when we'd be analysing businesses and understanding their operating profit. Because if certain businesses I worked on, and I know them because of their brands, etc., or being in the news, and I'm like, wow, they must be like really, doing well, etc. And then when you look at their financial statements and we like do a deep dive trying to understand what is driving the growth of this business and what is actually happening here, a lot of the time, some businesses we used to see would be, actually they've done really well because they've just jacked up their prices a lot. But the volume and the quantity has stayed the same. So is the business actually growing? No, because the volume has stayed the same. You sold the same amount you sold last year, but you've just increased the prices. So that's why this year your business looks like it's doing better. Or sometimes what would happen is when we're analyzing it is that revenues actually stayed flat, but the business has got rid of a lot of costs, so that profit has gone up. So again, on paper, when someone's looking at it, they're like, wow, this business is doing really well. And we're like, no, actually it's not. This business, the revenue has not gone up, or sometimes it's gone down. It's just that they've decreased a lot of their costs. And because of that, they've got an increase in profit. And that I found that the most fascinating bit about businesses, which I think a lot of people, when you look on the news, social media, you'll be like, wow, you know what, these businesses are doing so well, look at what they're achieving, etc. But when you actually go into the numbers, sometimes you're like, no, this business is not doing well at all. So I think that that's something that people misunderstand a lot about businesses, is that they assume a lot of businesses are doing well, but when you really go into the numbers and you understand what is driving this business, that's when you're like, okay, wow. And I know, like, over recently, whilst I've been networking and also talking to a few potential clients, a lot of the startups I've approached are actually in the stage of either finding funding or they want to exit. And I would talk to them and I'm like, look, I actually know this. Like, if you gave me your numbers, even I could tell you right now whether your business is, what's driving your business. And like, what will help with the valuation and stuff. A lot of people think like, oh wow, if we just see revenue going up or profit going up, the business is great. And then when you have companies like doing what I used to do, financial due diligence, when we'd be going in and trying to actually understand what is driving this business, we'd be like, no, this business is not doing good. And it would also impact the valuation of the business, because when we give our findings and we're like, actually this business is not growing, whether it started off at, like, I'm saying 100 million, that was the deal offer, this can be knocked down to 90 million. That's something, that 10 million pounds that someone's lost. So overall, the summary of this is just, don't assume a business is doing well, because you actually really don't understand what is driving a business till you look at the numbers. The next thing I want to talk about is, why do so many leaders fail even though that they're highly skilled? I find this the most fascinating topic, because when you look at a lot of leaders and you look at different corporations, everyone's got different ways of promotion. And sometimes it's just a tick box exercise, right? It's just like, have they done like this many projects? Have they managed these many people? Have they reached a certain criteria, XYZ? Yes, and once you do that, they get promoted. But one thing I think companies fail to look at is actually whether they have leadership skills. So I think it's interesting when you look at leadership, because I personally don't think that everyone is born to be a leader. I think leadership is something that you learn over time. And I honestly do think that anyone can be a leader, but it's if you learn a lot about yourself and other people. When you look at leadership, yes, a lot of leaders and seniors you'll talk to, whether it's director, C-suites, etc. When you talk to them about this certain topic that they've specialized in, they've spent years learning and mastering, they're going to be highly skilled. They're obviously going to know what they're going to what they're going to say, what they're talking about. And it's because they actually know it. Knowledge is power, right? But a lot of leaders fail because they only specialize in one area. That highly skilled bit that they have, that's something that they're focused on. And yes, they need that to do well to what they're doing and help the business. But they solely focus on just specializing in whatever the business is in and doing whatever they're doing, that they forget about something else that is so important: the human element, the people element, managing people. Not everyone knows how to deal with people. It's all a learning step. Some people can't have difficult conversations. Some leaders as well, they don't know a lot about themselves, and a lot of emotions that come to them as a natural instinct might be anger or rage. And the way that they talk to employees, it's a lot of skills that people would not have mastered. And I genuinely think that companies should invest hand in hand, specialize in the skill, but specialize in leadership. I think leadership needs to be looked at very separately to the skills of the job. Do they have the leadership skills required to be a good leader? And one thing I always look at is teachers. We've all gone to school, so when you go to school, you have your teacher who teaches you X subject, right? Let's say you've got a teacher who's teaching you chemistry. That teacher has gone and obviously learned chemistry. They've done their research. They know the chemistry, so they're highly skilled on the topic and the subject. But they also go to university and get a degree on teaching. They're taught how to teach. And this is where I think companies really go wrong, because just like when we look at the chemistry teacher, the chemistry teacher has learnt chemistry, but they're also taught how to teach. Our leaders, they're just taught how to specialize in whatever skill they've got, but are they taught how to be a leader? And this is where I think a lot of leaders fail and why businesses fail. So the next thing I want to move on to is, what's the one mistake that businesses make when it comes to managing people? Simple answer is that they expect us all to be the same. But we're not. Every single person is different. And when you're trying to get everyone to be the same, you're asking people to feel getting people to be in very uncomfortable situations or environments, and you're getting some people who will thrive, and it's just a mismatch, essentially. Everyone is unique. Businesses want all employees to be the same. And I think this is a really mistake. I'm not saying all businesses do this. I know there are some businesses which tell their employees, bring yourself to work, and they really encourage individualization, etc. But a lot of companies, when you look at their promotion process or their appraisal process, etc., they just kind of bucket them into I don't know, like on a graph, or say you're here, here, here. But businesses never look at, on an individual basis, are we using the actual strengths of this person to their best ability to help them thrive and also help the business thrive? And I think this is where a lot of companies go wrong. When you try and get everyone to be the same, you lose out on the special talent that someone else might have. You also make people become someone else that they don't want to be and are potentially uncomfortable. So an example is that when I've looked at a company, we were looking at their appraisal process, and some people were getting marked down on their appraisals just because they're quiet and don't really like their social interactions aren't as strong as someone else. And the louder person is noticed a lot more and gets a lot more opportunity. But when you actually take a step back, yes, the louder person is great with client interactions, put them out there. But the person who's not that comfortable when interacting with people, they're actually better at sitting, being quiet, thinking about strategy, that being analytical, and they're like, okay, this is the way we're going to process it, etc. They've got great strengths there. And why are we trying to say that everyone needs to be loud and sociable and being able to talk to clients? It's not something that naturally comes to people. It's hard. But yeah, so essentially I do think that overall, the one thing that businesses make a mistake on with people is trying to get everyone to be the same. So what's the biggest lesson I've learned since leaving corporate and starting my business? Oh my God, I don't even think there's one lesson to this. I think there's multiple lessons. I guess if I had to really pick it to one, it would be how unpredictable it is being your own business, like being your own boss and running your own business, and the stress that comes with it. It's, when you work in corporate, I had a fixed salary. Once I finish my work, I don't really need to think about work. But when I have my own business, I'm constantly thinking about it. Last week, it was my birthday, and I decided to take 3 days off because I've been working 7 days a week and I've not really taken a day off. And I was like, oh, that would be nice. I think the first day I just sat there for like 3 hours, just really stressed out because I was like, I should be working. Why am I just wasting time? Like, this is clearly not good enough. Like, what am I doing? And it's hard when you have your own business. I think every day I wake up, yes, I've got this. And you know what? Good things are happening, don't get me wrong. But just as many good things are happening, I think 10 times more other things are happening where I always feel like, oh, I've taken a step forward, but something happens and it takes me 10 steps back, and then I have to refigure something out. And honestly, that's just been the challenge. It's just been hard. I think it's just, everything's so unpredictable. I don't know, like, you don't know when a client is going to say yes. You don't know when you're going to be at a place where I'll be onboarding clients just one after the other. And it's hard. It's really hard. I think this is a very lonely journey that not a lot of people understand, and not a lot of people understand, and it's really isolating. But I think it has made me a lot stronger. I also think another challenge, you know what, like I said, there's multiple challenges. I don't have one. There's just so many things. Another challenge that I've had to face is that when I worked in the corporate world, I was backed by the name. So what I mean by this is that when I walked into a meeting, I'm small. I'm 5'1". I'm really short. My voice is quite high-pitched. I sound like, in my head, and I know, okay, to be fair, no, it's not in my head. I've been told this by a lot of people. But I sound like a kid. And a lot of people also say that I look like a kid. And I get even more, I'm more conscious on it when I'm on, for example, this, or when I'm on a Teams call or on a phone call, because I think my voice sounds much younger than I actually am. So for me to get people to take me seriously, it was already when I was working a corporate job. Like, I would be literally in a meeting and there'd be 20 men and just me, and I'd be running this. And I'd walk in and I'd have to be assertive. And, I prep myself. I make sure I look the part. My dressing always had to, I always did things to elevate. I did wear high heels because it made me taller. Like, being 5'1" is short. But honestly, if I walked into a room where all the men are 6 foot, it wasn't great. It used to be tough to get recognized and voiced in that room, and they're all older to me. So I'd wear high heels, dress really well, and I would have to be very assertive. But the one thing that helped with the corporate world was that I came with that name, KPMG. So when I walked in, they would be like, okay, she works for KPMG. So I already had an automatic bit of respect just because of the brand behind it, the name behind it. But then I also had to work a bit harder, being in that room, being like, I'm going to be running this meeting. This is my meeting, and this is what we're going to get out of it. And I used to do really well, don't get me wrong. Now that I've left and I don't have that name behind me and I'm building my own brand, this has been a challenge where I'm talking to people, because do you know how many times I've been told, like, oh, you're so young. I've been working for like 20 plus years. I'm more experienced than you. You're not an expert. You're not this. I've been told by people, oh, you should try and work on your voice and deepen it, because that's going to help you. And I do, maybe that might be a thing, and it is something I'm working on as well. Like learning how to give a more empowering way of talking, etc. Because there are studies that have shown the difference in having the voice that I have to something that's higher, etc. And it's all interesting, but when I've had to build my own brand up, it's been really hard when I walk into a room to get people to take me seriously sometimes, because they just look at me and they're like, oh, she's a kid. I'm not a kid. I am 30 years old. I'm educated. I've got the experience. Fine, I don't have 20 years on me, but I'm learning. And I get told this by a lot of people still to this day. And like when I'm making business decisions, or if I'm asking someone for advice, and they'll be like, yeah, but Prina, you're not the expert in this. And you can't, like, you want to do this, but you've never been in sales, for example. So I don't know how you're going to be achieving this. Be realistic. And I think that's one thing that has actually been quite a bit of a challenge. It's just like not having that name behind me, and now being 5'1", high-pitched voice, looking quite young. It's hard for me to get, sometimes it's quite hard for me to get people to take me seriously. But eventually, like when I start talking to them, they're like, a lot of people will be like, wow, I didn't expect all this experience from you and this knowledge and stuff like that. And I'd be like, well, that's a bit rude, but a lot of people do assume that. And it's a challenge, and it's something that I'm having to work on. But yeah, I think having a brand name behind you versus you building your own brand, that's quite challenging. So the final thing I want to discuss on this episode is, why does self-understanding matter so much in a business? I think self-understanding is so crucial and important, because when you start understanding things like what are your stress triggers? How and why do you get panicky or anxious in certain situations? Why do you get angry in certain situations? Why do you get scared in certain situations? Or why do you get sad in certain situations? When you start understanding these emotions, what your responses are, the way you're reacting, it really can improve the way that you do business. So for example, being an entrepreneur, it's stressful. It's just like, this day is going good, this day is going bad. It's like up, down. You don't know what the hell's happening. One day you're on a roller coaster, you're going round and round and all that. But I know my own stress triggers. I know what can push me into this end where I might get anxious or panicky or scared, or what might get me really angry, etc. And now that I'm really aware of that, when I'm walking into that situation, I already can see what my outcome would be, what I'd be feeling. And from there, I'm like, nope, can't have this outcome. I need to go this way. This is the way I need to react. And when I've started learning little things like this, like let's say if I walk into a meeting and someone's really being aggressive and aggravating or rude and insulting, rather than me getting angry, I actually now able to talk to them in a calm manner, which sometimes actually calms the other person down and they talk to you better. But the outcomes I'm getting are much better and much more positive. And the business decisions I'm making are not only driven by emotion, but it's an emotion and logic. And I'm not making rash decisions. I'm not making impulsive decisions. I'm thinking about things and thinking, okay, if I do X, Y, Z, this is the outcome. If I do X, Y, Z, this is the outcome. If I walk into this room and I react like this will be the outcome. I think self-understanding is so important, because so when you understand all these little bits about yourself, you'll start making better decisions. It also helps you in other ways. Like now communication is so important. I think it's essential in life. When you know how to communicate with someone, you'll be able to get the best possible outcome for yourself and the other person. That is something self-understanding teaches you, because you understand, okay, well, if I'm walking into a room, I'm getting intimidated. Why am I getting intimidated? You're able to break it down that you're like, actually, now I'm not intimidated anymore. And you'll walk in and you're more confident. That sounds amazing, right? Imagine that in businesses, when you're talking to clients, when you're talking to employees, talking to clients that you're more like, they understand you, it's all transparent, they're happy with you, there's less issues with your client, so better revenue. With your employees, and you're talking to employees and you understand yourself and you're giving reactions, the appropriate reactions that you need in those situations, you'll also be able to motivate and inspire your employees. When you have more motivated and inspired employees, they have better productivity. This leads to higher revenue output and overall better retention, which will help with your profitability. So that's my take on self-understanding. I think it's been a game changer, because I apply everything that I teach to companies out there. I apply it on myself. I use it on my business. And if I didn't have the self-understanding, that the amount of self-understanding about myself that I do to this day, I think I would have probably quit doing what I'm doing last year. Or it would have broken me down that I would be getting panic attacks and anxiety attacks every single day if I didn't understand myself really well. So I think it's just really important. And I know there's a lot right now on social media as well about pushing for self-care and self-love and all of that. And I think that's important. It's important in your personal life, but I also think it's just as important in your business life. Regardless if you're a leader, employee, or an entrepreneur. Whichever aspect you are in, if you want to grow in your career, self-understanding is key. Just wanted to say thank you for watching my first episode. It's actually been funny. I think I've recorded 5 first episodes, but we'll eventually get there. And I am going to be on a mission to improve each episode day by day and try and see what you guys like and what's better and everything. But I just really want to educate people out there. I think education is important and vital. And when you start understanding these things, you'll understand the mission I'm on. And I hope that you'll start joining me on the mission I'm on. So if this whole chat has resonated with you, please can you subscribe below? That would mean a lot. It would really help me. And stay tuned for more episodes. So the next few episodes, I am going to start deep diving into specific topics. And we're going to be talking about real life events that are happening. Is it specific topics like on leadership, HR, toxic work cultures, etc. There's going to be a lot coming this way. It's going to be it's just really exciting, I think, to do this. I'm excited. I'm hoping that you'll all join me on this journey. And again, like I said, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if there's anything that you want me to discuss, then just drop something in the comment section below and I'll have a look at it. And yeah, stay tuned, follow for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.